Hey there. Tonight we're venturing back not to castles or kingdoms, but to the dust-choked trails, sun-bleached plains, and forgotten corners of the American frontier. You'll live the life of a cowboy from greenhorn to grizzled veteran. You'll endure endless drives, bone-chilling nights, rampaging herds, outlaws, spoiled provisions, and a loneliness that clings tighter than trail dust on sweat-soaked clothes. If this kind of storytelling helps you unwind, feel free to like the video and subscribe, but only if it genuinely brings you peace. Drop a comment about where you're listening from and what time it is. There's something oddly comforting knowing others are drifting off to the same quiet tale. If you'd like to support my work and enjoy ad-free listening, check the Patreon link below. It helps keep the campfire burning. Now dim those lights. Turn on a fan for that soft background hum. Settle in, and let's begin at the very start of a cowboy's journey. You're 17 when word comes down. News travels slow out here, slower than a three-legged horse. But this message finds you quick enough. They're hiring riders, cowpokes, men who can stay mounted and don't spook easy. Men who can trail a herd north through territory that's never seen a fence post, let alone civilization. You're not certain you qualify, but nobody in your family's got better prospects, and your choices boil down to the trail or the plow. And that plow's got a way of turning boys into old men before their beards fill in. So you ride into town on your pause mule, wearing boots that belonged to your cousin till he outgrew them or died. You can't recall which. The foreman doesn't ask many questions. Can you ride? Sure. Can you shoot? Yep. Ever worked cattle? Not yet. But how hard can it be? He squints, shrugs, and scrawls your name with a charcoal stick on the back of a tobacco pouch. Just like that, you're hired. That night, you bed down in a lopsided barn behind the saloon, using a saddlebag for a pillow with splinters digging into your thigh. Somewhere in the darkness, men already signed on for the drive snore like sawmills. Outside, a horse whinnies in protest. You roll over, unaware you've just signed up for months of saddle sores, half-raw beans, and sunburns that peel in sheets. By dawn, you're on your feet, boots heavy with dew and second thoughts. The others are already saddling up. There's a rhythm to the work. Tighten the cinch, check the bridle, mount up without groaning too loud. You're handed a rope and told to help gather the remuda, which sounds like some disease till someone points at the horses. Your mount's a scrawny, ugly gelding with one ear permanently cocked sideways. You name him Lefty, mostly so you've got someone to talk to later. Training, if you can call it that, is hands-on. A seasoned rider shows you how to sit loose in the saddle, ride with your knees instead of your backside, and keep your hat from flying off without nailing it to your scalp. You practice swinging a lasso, mostly succeeding in tying your own ankles together. Nobody laughs, not allowed anyway. It's too early in the drive to waste energy on humor. Your trail boss is a man called Gaines, thick mustache, eyes like dry creek beds, and a voice that sounds like it's been boiled in coffee grounds. He doesn't smile much, but he can roll a cigarette one-handed while steering a horse with the other. You learn quick. When he says ride, you ride. When he says quiet, you shut your trap. And when he says stampede, you pray. The first few days blur into motion and dust. The cattle are skittish, your horse is stubborn, and the heat's relentless. You ride for miles without seeing a tree tall enough for shade or a stream clean enough to trust. Water's rationed. So's conversation. Most communication comes in grunts, whistles, and the occasional curse when a steer breaks formation. You start understanding why cowboys aren't known for speeches. Your hands toughen, your thighs scream, and your standards for food plummet. You'll eat anything Cookie serves, even if it looks like it put up a fight. Breakfast is coffee and biscuits so hard you could shingle a roof with them. Supper's beans, maybe with a whisper of bacon if the stars align. You learn to eat fast and sleep faster. When sleep comes, it's not restful. You lie under the stars wrapped in a blanket that's never quite enough, boots tucked under your head so they don't walk off. The wind howls. Coyotes yap in the distance. Once or twice you swear you hear something slithering toward your bedroll. You don't move. If it's your time, it's your time. At least you won't die with clean boots. By week's end, you've stopped questioning your choices. Not because they make sense, but because there's no turning back. You've learned to ride half asleep, eat half-cooked meat, and ignore half your body's complaints. You've also learned to sit a saddle so long it becomes part of you, or until your bones forget what comfort ever felt like. Your companions are as varied as the cattle. There's Dobbs, who chews tobacco like it's communion. There's Red, who only speaks after sundown and sings to the cattle like they're his children. Then there's young Jesse, greener than you, who dreams aloud about marrying some banker's daughter and opening a hotel. Nobody tells him the odds. Every cowboy's got a reason for riding. Some are running from things. Others are running toward them. Most, like you, are just riding because the alternative involves a pickaxe or taking orders from some fool with opinions. Out here, the only opinions that matter come from the man holding the reins, and from steers with horns long enough to make you reconsider your life choices. As days stretch into weeks, something shifts. The trail becomes routine. You stop checking the horizon every 5 minutes and start noticing how cattle bunch up when storms approach. You learn the sound of trouble, the wrong kind of silence, the sudden snap of a branch, the way the herd freezes right before chaos. You don't relax exactly, but you adapt. Then comes your first real scare. Maybe a snake in your bedroll, maybe a spooked steer bolting straight for you. Either way, your heart races, your horse stumbles, and you realize with perfect clarity that you're very small in a very big land, and nobody's coming to save you. Still, you stay? Because by now the trail's in your blood, the dust lives in your boots, and the smell of cattle clings to your clothes. You start talking like the others, short, direct, with enough slang to baffle a schoolmarm. You've stopped trying to wipe the dirt off your face. It'll just be back by noon. Some nights you dream of real beds, clean sheets, walls that don't flap in the wind, doors that lock, floors that don't crawl with things. But then you wake to a sky so wide and quiet it almost forgives the misery beneath it. Almost. Occasionally someone drops out. Fever, busted leg, snake bite. You ride past the spot next morning without saying much. Maybe a nod. Maybe someone spits. Then it's back to the herd. The trail doesn't stop for stories. In town, they'll romanticize this life. They'll spin tales of gunfights and dramatic showdowns, high noon duels, and whiskey-soaked vengeance. You'll hear folks talk about cowboys like you're something out of legend. But you know the bitter truth. It wasn't bullets that broke most men. It was the bone-deep boredom, the unrelenting backaches, the stale biscuits that could break teeth, the loneliness that crept between hoofbeats and grew teeth at night. You weren't some hero, just a man doing a job too rough for most and too meaningless for anyone sane to stick with. And yet, when it's all said and done, when your pay's tucked in your pocket, when the herd's behind you and your boots finally hit the wooden floor of some saloon after months in the dirt, you realize something peculiar. You miss it. Not the beans, not the blisters, but the trail itself, the endless sky, the feeling of moving towards something, even if that something was just another 50 miles of dust and silence. You'll ride again, because it's what you do, even if nobody ever understands why. Your first rail test comes before sunrise. The herd's restless, snorting in the pre-dawn dark, their shadows twitching like smoke across the prairie. Gaines wakes you with his boo feel and a grunt that means saddle up, but sounds like prepare to die. Your thighs still scream from yesterday's ride, and you can't recall if you dreamed of sleep or just dreamed of aching. Lefty stands a few paces off, chewing something that might be grass or might be his own bridle. You hobble over, more stumble than walk, and begin the morning ritual. Blanket, saddle, cinch, stirrup check, and a silent prayer that this time your left leg won't betray you. Because out here, the horse comes first. You ride well, or you ride home. Or more likely, you don't ride anywhere ever again. Folks think riding sounds simple enough. Sit tall, hold the reins, nudge the horse, off you go. But by your third day on the trail, you know better. That saddle's a torture device wrapped in leather. The stirrups gnaw at your knees, and Lefty, bless his lopsided ears, takes particular joy in veering left whenever your weight shifts wrong. You don't so much ride as cling like a burr to a moving target. Trail riding's another beast entirely. Not some parade, but a forced march with hooves. You ride to manage the herd, not enjoy the scenery. The cattle move slow and dumb, always looking for excuses to bolt, panic, or plant their hooves in some thorn patch you didn't spot. Your job, greenhorn or not, is to keep them from wandering or running. You learn quick there's an art to it. Not the romantic kind with galloping rescues and wild adventures, but the kind that takes weeks of agony to half-master and still leaves you sore. A good cowboy rides as much with his knees and gut as with the reins. You keep your heels light in the stirrups, not just for comfort, but survival. Get your foot caught wrong when your horse spooks at a jackrabbit, and you're not just hitting dirt. You're getting dragged through the brush like yesterday's laundry. Lefty gives no quarter. He tests you every dawn. Will you mount clean? Hold a girth tight without pinching him? Ride without listing sideways like a sinking ship? On good days, you stay mounted. On bad ones, you return with blood on your shirt and mud in your teeth. Gaines doesn't coddle. He watches with those creek-bed eyes, nods when you stay aboard, scowls when you don't. You ride like a man whose trousers are on fire, he mutters once. It's the closest you'll get to praise all week. But you adapt. Not because it gets easier, but because the alternative's worse. Every fall hurts a little less. Not because your bones toughen, but because your expectations lower. You start wearing bruises like medals. One across your thigh from that mesquite encounter. One on your ribs from that first bad spill. One just above your pride from when you dismounted forgetting you were still tied to the pack horse. History books claim few skills were more prized than horsemanship. The cowboy wasn't just a man on a horse, he became part of it. Those western saddles with their horns and deep seats were built for endurance, for 12-hour days on unforgiving ground. You're not riding for an hour. You're riding until the sun bleaches your bones, sometimes longer during drives. And you're not alone. Cowboys across the West, farmers' sons, freed slaves, immigrants, Confederate veterans, learned to ride not for sport, but survival. A day's ride could cover 30 miles or more across prairie, river, and ravine. If your horse threw a shoe or went lame, you fixed it yourself. Fail at that, and you'd better be good at walking. Each cowboy typically kept several horses in the remuda, a rotating pool of spares. You learn to read Lefty's moods, but you'll ride others too. Some move smooth, others have mean streaks. One called Whiskey Jack bucks riders for fun. Another named Daisy acts sweet till lightning cracks, then bolts like Satan's on her tail. Then there's night riding. The cattle don't stop needing watch just because the sun quits. Someone's got to circle the herd, singing if needed, calming them with low sounds so they don't stampede at a snapping twig. When your shift comes, it's dark, cold, your hat useless against starlight or silence. You listen for anything wrong, the wrong shuffle of hooves, a grunt too sharp, stillness that lasts too long. Your voice cracks halfway through a lullaby you last heard your mother sing. Lefty flicks an ear. One step, then another. The herd stays calm. You stay awake. The boredom's its own kind of torment. Hours staring at bovine backsides. The same patch of earth unspooling endlessly. You talk to yourself. You talk to your horse. You count clouds. Some men hum old songs. Some invent stories. Some don't speak for days. But all of it, the aches, the saddle burns, the empty miles, feeds something deeper. You're learning, slow and painful as it comes. You're learning to ride. And out here, if you can't ride, you can't survive. One morning, Gaines puts you near the point, just behind the lead steer, a position of trust and a prime way to mess up. The point man sets the pace. Too fast, the cattle tire. Too slow, the drags. You find yourself watching every twitch of the lead steer's ears like they're telegraph signals. The beast veers left, you gently push right. It slows, you ease back. Too much pressure, and it spooks. Too little, and it wanders. This isn't herding. It's negotiation. That afternoon, a greener hand than you goes down hard when his saddle cinch slips. He gets up pale and shaking, limping like he fell off a church steeple. Nobody mocks him, not openly. Everyone's been there. Everyone remembers their first hard lesson. He tightens the girth, mounts again, rides on. That's the unspoken rule. You get back on. Always. You ride with cracked ribs, swollen ankles, a mouth full of dust. You ride sleep-deprived because the trail won't wait, and Gaines makes no exceptions. When the day's ride ends, if the herd hasn't spooked and nobody's broken anything vital, you dismount, stretch legs that forgot they could bend, and help make camp. You rub down your horse before eating, because he earned it. You lean against your saddle listening to coffee hiss over fire, boots shuffling, tired men murmuring. Nobody thanks you for staying mounted. No applause. Just another night under the stars and the certainty that tomorrow you'll do it all again. A cowboy's skill isn't measured in flair. It's in resilience. Knowing when to push, when to ease, when to ride silent, and when to sing. By the time you reach the next railhead, your seat's firm, your back's permanently bent, and Lefty doesn't test you so much. He's learned you. Somehow, you've earned each other's wary respect. And somehow, you've earned your pay. But the learning never stops. Every trail has new bends, every horse new tricks, every ride fresh lessons beaten into your bones. This is the cowboy's education. No diploma, no praise, just another saddle, another sunrise, and a ride. You wake with the taste of ashes in your mouth. Not some poetic metaphor, but actual ashes blown into your face by the morning wind and stuck to last night's half-burned biscuit. Cookie's already got the fire going again, rattling his pans and cursing the wind like it's a personal enemy. The smell of boiling coffee cuts through the dust, bitter, strong, and the only thing you have to look forward to. Breakfast, if you can call it that, consists of cold beans gone leathery, a hunk of bacon that smells suspicious, and the same biscuit you fell asleep chewing. Welcome to cowboy cuisine, whatever hasn't rotted yet. Out here, your entire diet depends on the chuck wagon creaking along a few miles behind the herd, pulled by mules who probably hate this job as much as you do. Inside that rolling kitchen, carefully packed between flour barrels and bean sacks, maybe a jug of vinegar sloshing like a drunk's last drink. That's your sustenance for the next 2 months. Cookie, the grizzled tyrant of this mobile mess hall, guards his domain like a dragon hoards gold. Food is currency here. But unlike coins, it sweats, stinks, and attracts flies. Cowboy meals weren't designed for pleasure, just survival. Beans, always beans, are the backbone. Packed with protein and easy to store, they get soaked and boiled until edible, or at least until your stomach stops arguing. Flour becomes biscuits harder than wagon wheels and drier than prairie dust. You need a full cup of coffee just to soften each bite. Bacon, when available, is both delicacy and gamble, salted beyond reason, kept in grease-coated barrels, turning pink and funky with time. You sniff each strip like a banker inspecting counterfeit bills. If it doesn't fight back, you call it supper. Spoilage is the silent enemy. The chuck wagon carries no ice, no cooler, no luxury, just shade, salt, and wishful thinking. Meat turns faster than a spooked Mustang. Anything soft, bread, fruit, cheese, vanishes within days of departure, if you were lucky enough to have any at all. Then there's the coffee, the lifeblood of cowboys. Boiled until black as midnight, poured thick as mud, drunk from tin cups so dented you wonder if they've ever been washed. No cream, no sugar. If you're lucky, Cookie remembered not to strain it through the same cloth he used to clean his rifle. Still, it's sacred ritual. Even when you're dead on your feet, you crawl to that fire for your cup. It's hot, it's strong, and it convinces you you're still alive long enough to saddle up again. Cookie himself is a legend carved from saddle leather and bad temper. Usually missing a finger or walking with a limp, he's equal parts chef, medic, shrink, and dictator. He decides when you eat, what you eat, and how fast you get it. You don't mess with Cookie. Complain about his biscuits? That's a good way to lose your portion. His tools are few but mighty. A battered Dutch oven blackened by countless fires. A coffee pot that's seen more sunrises than you have. Bean kettles with personalities of their own. And that iron triangle he bangs to summon you like hogs to slop. The chuck wagon holds his treasures. Tin containers of mysterious contents. Flour sacks that never seem to empty. Lard tins that could tell stories. And most precious of all, the sourdough starter. That bubbling, living thing in the corner gets treated like holy relic. It makes biscuits, flapjacks, even fry bread on good days. It's Cookie's only pet allowed on the trail. And if there's one thing Cookie knows, it's how to stretch a meal thinner than a banker's smile. He'll toss in dried apples when he's feeling generous, raisins if he hasn't eaten them all himself. Once he made prickly pear jelly from cactus fruit boiled over fire and strained through someone's hat. Tasted like heaven after weeks of salt pork. That time he cobbled together a peach cobbler from dried fruit and biscuit dough nearly made a grown man cry. Not because it was good, but because it was different. And out here, different tastes like salvation. On especially lean days, dinner might include mystery meat, possum, raccoon, whatever wandered too close to camp looking edible. Cookie won't tell you what it is, just smiles his toothless grin and calls it trail special. You eat it anyway. After a heavy rain turned the trail to soup, Cookie once caught a rattlesnake. The stew that night had a texture between rubber and twine. When someone asked what kind of beef it was, Cookie just said the hissing kind. Nobody asked again. The dangers aren't just taste and texture. Food poisoning will kill you as dead as any bullet. Out here, diarrhea isn't just discomfort, it's death sentence. Bad meat or fouled water means fever, cramps, dehydration with no doctor within 200 miles. Go down sick, and the herd moves on. They might leave you a canteen and a hat over your face if you're lucky. That's trail justice. And the cruelest twist? You start craving it. After weeks of gritty, salty, half-burned sameness, you find comfort in the routine. You miss the sound of beans boiling when you're out riding drag. You catch yourself looking forward to that exact moment when Cookie bangs his triangle, calling you to feed like some Pavlovian experiment. The cook himself becomes this strange father figure. Older, crankier, with a bad back, but good aim. His job's thankless, but sacred. He sleeps apart, guards the food like Fort Knox, and somehow cooks meals for 15 over a wind-whipped flame. Without him, you'd all starve, or worse, have to cook for yourselves. Everything in that chuck wagon has its place. Flour sacks hung high against rodents, meat wrapped in burlap and buried in salt, tin cups dangling like wind chimes, coffee pots blackened by countless fires. Tools are lashed down, pans nested just so, and the wooden box on back cradles those Dutch ovens like newborn babes. When you pass through some speck of a town with a general store, it's like Christmas morning. Cookie might trade for real sugar, a tin of peaches, or if the stars align, pickled eggs. You'd sell your spare boots for one of those eggs. But towns are few and supplies slim. Most everything's been hauled over 4 freight wagons and 3 months of travel before reaching those shelves. Even when you get to town, a proper meal's a gamble. That saloon steak might be yesterday's mule and gravy. Ask about the beans, and the barkeep says they've been warming since spring. You order them anyway, desperate for anything that doesn't taste like hoof and regret. But it's not just about food. It's the rhythm of the trail, the communion of shared hardship. You eat shoulder to shoulder with men who smell like horses and regret, who haven't bathed since crossing the Red River, who curse Cookie with the same affection they'd show a brother. The fire, the battered tin plates, the hiss of boiling pots. This is the cowboy's altar, his dining room, his church. You never quite stop being hungry, not really. Your body adjusts, but there's this hollow place that stays. Some nights you dream of butter, others of peaches, fresh bread, stew with more than 2 ingredients, even just a glass of milk. But when that triangle rings and Cookie bellows, "Come and get it," you run. Because in the Wild West, you eat whatever hasn't spoiled yet. And if you're lucky, it won't bite back. You don't remember exactly when the drive began. Maybe it was when the trail boss pointed north and grunted there. Maybe it was when your boots left behind the last wooden boardwalk for dirt untouched by civilization. Either way, that line between home and the trail has long since vanished under hoof prints, wagon ruts, and dust that tastes the same no matter where you roam. The cattle stretch from horizon to horizon, 2,000 snorting, wally-eyed beasts with no sense of direction. You ride their flanks, yelling, waving your hat, whistling till your lips crack. They don't listen. Not really. But they'll follow each other, and you'll follow them. This slow-moving flood of horns and hooves. Every day's the same. Wake stiff as a board, brush off the dirt, drink coffee strong enough to strip paint, and saddle up in silence. Nobody talks much. Nobody needs to. You all know the drill. Miles upon miles of dust, sagebrush, and the endless press of sun on leather. No saloons in sight. No high noon showdowns. Just the ceaseless grind of hooves and your own chapped skin. Hollywood never shows the boredom, the soul-deep monotony that turns even majestic landscapes into wallpaper. You cross plains identical to yesterday's. Ride rivers that meander like drunk snakes. Once you pass an old wagon half swallowed by grass, canvas shredded, wheels splintered, some other fool's failed dream. You don't stop to wonder what happened. Just keep moving. Some days you ride point near the trail boss, squinting at faint ruts left by herds before yours. Other days you're on flank duty, keeping strays from wandering. Worst is drag position. All dust, no dignity, where the dirt kicked up by 2,000 hooves lodges permanent in your lungs. You'll cough it up for weeks. Your horse doesn't complain, but you feel him slowing. Not tired exactly, just resigned. You know the feeling. The heat arrives early, burning off the dawn dew before breakfast's done. Your neck's already red, shirt stiff with yesterday's sweat. And just when you think it can't get worse, the wind starts flinging grit into your eyes like it's got a personal vendetta. You only stop when you must. River crossings, bogged wagons, spooked herds. Even then, nobody rests long. The trail boss watches the sun, and every lost hour means another night further from the railhead. Sometimes thunder growls in the distance. You pray it stays there. Rain turns trails to sludge and cattle into blind, stampeding idiots. You've heard stories of herds drowning in rivers, taking riders with them. You've seen the spots where men went under and didn't come up. When you ride night watch, the quiet's a different kind of cruel. Everything whispers, grass, stars, hooves, your own thoughts. The herd shuffles in sleep, blowing like troubled dreams. You hum some half-remembered lullaby, voice cracking from disuse. Lefty flicks an ear. One step, then another. The cattle stay calm. You stay awake. The chuck wagon's always there in the distance. Iron pots clanging like discordant church bells with every rut. Cookie's temper shortens as the trail lengthens. He's known to hurl a ladle if you ask for seconds, but he'll still rise before dawn to boil that bitter coffee. Say what you will. He's the glue holding this miserable family together. Dinner's never much. Beans, bacon, if it hasn't turned. Hardtack that could break teeth. But after 14 hours in the saddle, even mold tastes like a feast. You eat fast, wipe your mouth on your sleeve, and collapse where you stand, sometimes right in the dirt, hat over your face, dreaming of real beds with sheets that don't crawl. Your hands are cracked. Your back's a roadmap of pain. Your thighs feel like they've been tenderized with hammers. Still, you ride, because it's what you were hired for, what you'll do again tomorrow even if you swore today was your last. By the third week, even your bones feel sunburned. The trail doesn't just stretch on, it seeps into you, into your clothes, your skin, your very thoughts. You dream about cattle, about dust, about beans that never soften no matter how long they boil. You forget what fresh bread tastes like, what it's like to sit without swaying. The monotony becomes its own torture. You count fence posts that aren't there. Name cows you'll forget by morning. One longhorn stares at you daily like it's judging your life choices. Maybe it is. Maybe it knows something you don't. Sometimes you spot tracks. Hoof prints too small for cattle, too light for horses. Antelope maybe. Or wild mustangs. You hope it's not wolves. You've heard the stories. Packs shadowing herds for days, picking off calves at night. There's not much you can do. Keep the fire high. Sleep with your rifle close. The days bake you dry. The nights try to freeze what's left. You've seen Cookie pour boiling coffee into a tin cup only to have it ice over before he could drink it. That same week, a horse collapsed from cold exhaustion. We shot him at dawn. Couldn't let him suffer. Couldn't risk wolves catching his scent either. Coyotes call at night. Those long, mournful wails that rise over the plains like ghost songs. Some nights you whisper back, curses, bad jokes, half-remembered tunes from home. Other nights you just lie still and listen. Not much else to do when you're too cold to move, too tired to think, too far from anywhere for it to matter. Clothing's whatever you've got. Some wear Union Army coats from the war. Others stitch together buffalo hide jackets, stiff as hell, but warm as sin. Gloves are gold. Lose one, and you're cutting fingers off spares by spring. Socks double layered if you're lucky, but once wet, and they always get wet, they're more cursed than comfort. Sleeping arrangements? A joke. Your bedroll's just moldy canvas with one threadbare blanket. You lay it over dirt, snow, or rock, whatever's handy. Some rig up oilskin lean-tos. Others sleep in their saddles. Once during a snow squall, you dug a pit and slept under your coat like some hibernating animal. Woke up with eyelashes frozen shut. The cruelest part? The cold doesn't stop the drive. Cattle still move. Bosses still bark. You still saddle up and point north. The trail doesn't care if your fingers won't bend or your ears turn white with frost. You move or you're left behind. Nobody wants to be the man who froze stiff as a fence post and got hauled home over a saddle. You remember your first plain snow, beautiful for about 3 seconds, quiet and drifting like feathers. Then you realized it meant horses would founder in drifts, cattle would scatter, and every campfire would choke on damp wood. Snow's a liar, soft-looking but deadly. You learned to pack smarter after that. Kindling under your saddle blanket, extra socks in your bedroll, maybe a flask if you could sneak it. Whiskey doesn't help much, warms your throat, but makes sleep too deep. So never wake up. Cookie tries to help, sometimes warming rocks by the fire for night watch. You clutch them like treasure, burning your palms just to feel something. On the worst nights, he makes greasy stew that sits heavy in your gut. You thank him even if it tastes like saddle soap. Out here, even the sound of teeth chattering feels like company. Silence can be its own kind of cruelty. Sometimes the wind howls like it's laughing at you. Other times there's no sound at all, just the creak of leather, the distant cough of a cow as cold as you are. On the worst nights, when even the fire shivers, you long for impossible things, a hot bath, a feather pillow, a woman's voice, even an angry one. You remember hearths you haven't seen in years, and it makes the cold worse, because out here, there's no softness. Just your blanket, your breath, and whatever grit keeps you from quitting. So you endure, because enduring is all there is. You carry a gun not because you want to use it, but because you might have to. It's heavy on your hip, awkward when you sleep, but you'd rather have it and not need it than wake up one night empty-handed. Truth is, you haven't seen bandits. Not yet, but the fear of them, the thought of masked men waiting in the dark, is as real as your saddle or your scars. Rustlers, outlaws, claim jumpers, they're out there somewhere. Men who see your herd not as livestock, but quick cash. Some are desperate. Some are just mean. Some are bored and dangerous. You hear the stories around the fire. Camps hit at dawn. Riders who never returned from scouting. Cooks shot before they could stand. Doesn't matter if they're true. They're true enough. So you watch. Every night, someone's on guard. Coffee boiling. Rifle across knees. Eyes scanning the black beyond the firelight. It's the fire that betrays you. Those flickering flames cast shadows that jump like living things. You stare until bushes look like crouched men, until every coyote yelp makes your trigger finger twitch. You try not to think about it. Keep your head down, your gun clean, your boots close. The trail boss says it's part of the job. Stay sharp, stay alert. But sharp eyes won't stop a bullet, and alertness won't hear what makes no sound. The bandits you fear most aren't always strangers. Sometimes it's the man riding beside you. You've heard of cowboys turning on each other, stealing pay, settling grudges the hard way. One bad argument, one whiskey-soaked night, and suddenly there's one less rider at dawn. Still, there's comfort in the routine. Check the picket lines. Circle the herd. Note the moon's position. Hum to the cattle, hoping your voice keeps the night uneventful. Sometimes you bargain with the dark. Let me get through tonight, and I won't complain about the beans tomorrow. But complaining is half the job. You grumble to Cookie, to your horse, to the sky, about the heat, the aches, the smell of wet wool. And you complain about the fear, even if you call it something else. You say you're tired, not scared. Careful, not paranoid. That's cowboy pride. Most nights, nothing happens. Just wind over grass, cattle shifting in sleep, your own breath keeping time with the stars. You start wondering if all this vigilance is wasted. Then you remember, It only takes one night. One man with a fast horse and bad intentions. One mistake. 1 second. So you stay ready. There's a rhythm to vigilance. Scanning without seeming to. Listening without looking alert. You learn to roll from your bedroll gun in hand. To stay half awake through the stillest hours. You get used to the idea that danger might not show itself until it's too late. Sometimes the worst fear is the kind that never appears. The splinter in your mind that won't come out. You joke about it with the others, but everyone knows it's not funny. Not out here. That's why you never drop your guard. Not fully. Even in towns, when the drive's done and the herd's sold, you keep a hand near your belt. Saloons and streets can be deadly too. Drunks with grudges, gamblers on losing streaks, marshals who don't like your face. No cattle to protect now, but plenty of ways to end up dead. And yet for all this, for all the watching and waiting, being a cowboy isn't about gunfights. Most of your time is riding, herding, eating, sleeping, repeating. Your gun's a tool, not a trophy. The fear? Just part of the landscape. Still, some nights the trail feels too quiet, like the wind's holding its breath, like the cattle know something you don't. That gut feeling won't shake. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's nerves. Or maybe tonight's the night the stories come true. When the wind dies and the fire burns low, you hear it. A footstep, leather creaking, something moving just beyond sight. You freeze, barely breathing, hand curled around your revolver. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's a coyote sniffing for scraps. Or maybe not. You don't want to find out the hard way, so you wait, heart pounding, ears straining, eyes darting between shadows. Minutes crawl like hours. Then nothing, just snoring men and popping embers. You exhale, shift on your bedroll. Sleep won't come easy now. That's the thing about fear out here. It doesn't need a reason, just darkness and opportunity. By morning, you feel aged 10 years. Nobody notices. That's the job. Carry your worries quiet, buried under dust and routine. Because out here, silence is safer than honesty. And paranoia? Well, it keeps you breathing. And if someday bandits do come, you'll probably be too exhausted to react fast enough. That's the cruelest joke. All this tension, all these sleepless nights, and when danger finally arrives, it's over before you can think. Maybe your shot lands. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe you ride away. Maybe you don't. But until then, you ride on. You scan horizons. You check your revolver. You drink coffee black as sin and twice as bitter. And you remind yourself, it's not the bullets that break most cowboys. It's the waiting. So you wait, eyes open, saddle ready, always listening. Because even if the bandits never come, you're never quite sure they won't. You don't ride for the money. That truth hits harder than a bucking bronco when you finally limp into the railhead after weeks of blistering sun. Saddle sores that could make a preacher curse. Snake encounters that aged you 5 years. Stampedes that near stopped your heart. And beans that tasted like despair seasoned with campfire ash. The herd's delivered. The trail boss signs the papers. The cattle get corralled. And just like that, it's over. Payday comes, and if the stars align, you're handed $25, maybe $30 if the cattle sold well. A whole damn month's worth of danger, boredom, and bodily punishment boiled down to a few crumpled bills that wouldn't even cover a decent pair of boots. You tuck it in your pocket and try not to calculate what that says about your worth per hour. The cold reality? Cowboys earned about $1 a day back then, when they got paid at all. Some months paid better, others worse. You'd think driving thousands of half-wild beasts across hundreds of miles through every kind of weather would command a fair wage. You'd be dead wrong. The ranchers made their fortunes on volume, not generosity. And you? Just another replaceable part in their money-making machine. Expected to eat dust, endure storms, and keep your complaints to yourself. Complain too much? Well, there's always some greener, hungrier kid willing to sleep on rocks and chase cows for even less. Cowboys were never scarce, at least not the kind who'd sign up for misery without asking too many questions. You're one of many, and one mistake could send you walking back to nowhere. Sometimes you'd get a bonus if the drive went smooth and the herd didn't lose too many head. Other times, you'd get nothing but excuses if the market turned or the buyer found flaws. The math of your life depended on factors you'd never see or understand. Cattle prices in Chicago, railroad schedules, some banker's mood back east. You worked like a mule, but the pay arrived like a whisper, quiet, fleeting, and almost always disappointing. So where does that hard-earned cash go? First to your gear. That saddle you're using? Probably third hand. Your boots? One step from disintegration. Your hat? Maybe the only thing that'll last another season, but only because you sleep with it pulled over your face to block the sun. A new pair of gloves eats half your pay. A proper coat for cold nights? There goes the rest. You spend your money before you've got it. Patching your kit, replacing what's broken, maybe sending a coin or two home if there's family waiting. There's no saving, no nest egg, just survival until the next ride. And yet, you sign on again. Maybe it's habit. Maybe it's pride. Maybe it's that stubborn voice in your bones whispering you were made for this, even when your body screams otherwise. Or maybe it's because there's damn few alternatives. Towns don't want drifters with calloused hands and trail dust in their teeth. You're too rough for polite company, too poor to settle down, too restless to stay put. Some cowboys do move on, become ranch hands, marry if they're lucky, buy a scrap of land if they're blessed. But most just drift from one drive to the next, Texas to Kansas to Wyoming and back again, chasing cattle, chasing paydays, chasing a version of life that never quite materializes. It's not just the poverty that grinds you down. It's the treatment. You're expected to be tough, silent, and obedient. The trail boss doesn't want your opinions. He wants results. Fall behind. Get yelled at. Speak up. Get ignored. Get sick? Better not. There's no doctor and no patience for weakness. Ride or be left behind. Day after day of sleeping on cold ground. Eating the same damn beans until you dream in bean flavors. Riding for hours without a word spoken. It wears on a man. You start feeling like the cattle you drive. Herded, numbered, pointed in directions you don't choose. And yet, there's a strange loyalty among cowboys. Not to the ranchers, not to the job, but to each other. You watch your partner's back. Share your last biscuit. Pull a man from a bad fall without thinking twice. When thunder cracks and the herd runs wild, you spur your horse into chaos without hesitation to protect your crew. That bond runs deeper than paychecks, deeper than reason. Still, there's always the knowledge that you're expendable, that this life will chew you up and spit you out, that someday your horse will go lame, your reflexes will slow, and there'll be no place left for you on the trail. No gold watch. No thank you. No farewell party. Just the next hungry kid taking your spot in the saddle. Some ranchers paid in scrip. Company money only good at the overpriced company store. You'd ride all season thinking you'd earned $50, only to find you could spend it on marked up boots and stale tobacco, but never convert it to real coin. Forget sending money home. That script didn't travel, and neither did you. And yet, you keep riding. Why? Maybe it's the horizon calling. Maybe it's the silence of the plains, the weight of the stars, the simple satisfaction of a day's work done right. Maybe it's those rare moments, leading the herd across a river at dawn, mist rising off the water like something holy, and for one breath, feeling part of something bigger. Or maybe it's just stubbornness, the cowboy's curse. There's no glory here, no song sung about you, no riches waiting down the trail, just worn-out gear, a sunburn that never fades, and a back that aches before you hit 30. But there's honesty in it, in the dust, in the effort, in the scars. It's a hard life, but it's yours. And sometimes that's enough. Some cowboys hit town after a drive and blow their whole pay in one night. Whiskey, cards, maybe a bath and a bed if they're feeling civilized. Others hoard coins like dragons, dreaming of that mythical little spread they'll own someday. But most spin like they live, a little reckless, a little tired, never quite sure if tomorrow will be kinder or crueler. The work's seasonal, spring drives, fall roundups, a few weeks between to rest if you're lucky. Maybe fix some fences, maybe shoe some horses, but the cycle always comes back around. And each time, you're a little older, a little wearier, a little less surprised by how little changes. You watch new riders join up, young, cocky, loud as you once were. They learn quick. The trail doesn't tolerate slow learners. You nod at them from under your hat, knowing full well they'll be just like you in a few seasons. Quieter, harder, still pretending next time will be different. So the days blend. You ride, you eat, you sleep, then you ride again. The pain never grows. The towns don't soften. But there's something in the rhythm of it all. The creak of leather at dawn, the shared curses when the herd spooks, the rare laugh when someone tells a joke that actually lands. It becomes your world. You don't stay for the money. You stay for the story, even if nobody ever hears it. You stay because when your boots hit the dirt and your horse shifts beneath you, the world makes a kind of sense nothing else does. You stay because you're a cowboy, not in legend, not in name, but in truth. Poorly paid, often forgotten, always riding. You find comfort in small things, a worn-out song, a smooth rock that fits just right in your palm, the whistle of wind through grass that almost sounds like a voice you once knew. It's not that cowboy life offers nothing good. It's that the good comes rare and scattered, like coins dropped in dust. You learn to treasure those coins, polish them in memory until they shine brighter than they ever did in hand. Maybe it starts with the horse. Yours isn't much to look at, all ribs and scars and a hitch in her step when the weather turns. But you know her rhythms. She knows yours. A nudge means go. A touch means steady. When the herd panics at night and you're jerked from sleep, it's her solid weight beneath you that steadies the world. She's the closest thing to family most days. You talk to her more than the others. Sometimes, when your throat's too dry from dust and silence, your voice cracks saying her name. That's all right. She never corrects you. Then there's Cookie, cranky old bastard missing 3 teeth, smells like bacon grease and regret. But he's the closest thing to home you've got. He bangs pans at dawn like he's mad at the sun itself. But sometimes, when you're last in line, he drops an extra biscuit on your plate. Doesn't mention it. Doesn't need to. You come to know the sound of his dinner bell. Just a rusted triangle, really. But when it rings, you move. Not just from hunger, but because it means company, noise, something besides hooves and your own thoughts. It means rest, however brief. Dinner's never much. Beans, bacon if it hasn't turned, hardtack that could break teeth. But after 14 hours in the saddle, even mold tastes fine. You eat fast, wipe your mouth on your sleeve, and collapse where you stand. Sometimes right in the dirt, hat over your face, dreaming of real beds with sheets that don't crawl. Some nights, when the cattle are calm and the air's not too cold, someone pulls out a harmonica. Didn't know they had it. They play slow, real slow, like they're afraid the tune might blow away. A few hum along. Nobody sings. The fire crackles like it's listening. You lie back and look up. There are more stars than you knew existed. You try counting. Never finish. That sky, it's not comfort exactly. Sometimes it presses down, big and cold and indifferent. But other times, when the moon's just right or a cloud drifts like cotton, it feels like company. Silent, sure, but company nonetheless. You whittle sometimes. Nothing fancy, just carving your name, or maybe just a mark, into a fence post or mesquite branch. Something that says, I was here, in a world that forgets quick. There's a stretch of fence north of the dry creek where every cowboy's name is carved. Some neat, some just scratched in with a nail. A few names have lines through them. The men gone, stories ended or moved on. Nobody mentions those names. But you look when you pass, and you wonder. One kid in the crew, can't be 16, keeps a journal. You saw it once on night watch. He writes by firelight, hunched over like a scholar. You never ask what he puts down. He never says. But you wonder, is it about home? Or has he forgotten home entirely? You don't write. Never took to it. But you keep things, a button from a coat torn in a storm, a scrap of cloth with faded initials, a bullet that misfired and didn't kill you. Don't know why you keep them. They wouldn't mean spit to anyone else. But they're anchors, small ones, proof not everything gets lost to the wind. The trail doesn't offer luxury, barely offers survival. But now and then, a moment slips through, like gold in river gravel, and you hold on tight. Like when someone tells a joke that actually makes you laugh. Not just a snort, but a real laugh. The kind that surprises you because you'd forgotten the sound. Or when Cookie miraculously produces a tin of peaches. No idea how he got it. He passes it around. You get 2 slices. Sticky, sweet, like liquid sunshine. You don't ask for more. Just let the flavor linger, memorizing it like a prayer. Or when you spot a hawk circling high above the herd. You watch till it disappears. Something about that bird, free, graceful, alone, makes your chest ache in ways you can't name. There's a rhythm to the days. Misery, routine, small grace, repeat. The cattle don't care if you're tired. The sun won't wait till you're ready. But you learn to find moments in the grind. You talk to yourself more than you'd admit. The others pretend not to notice. You pretend not to care. It helps when the wind's just right, carrying the scent of sage or distant rain. It smells like change, like maybe someday you'll do something else. Something that doesn't mean raw hide and worse coffee. You know it's a lie, but it's a sweet one. Sometimes you dream of a porch, a real one, with planks that don't creak. A rocking chair, maybe a dog at your feet. You dream of stew in a proper bowl, of boots that don't leak, of a face you love that doesn't vanish at sunrise. Then the dream fades. The sun's up, the herd's moving. You saddle up and ride. And still there are good things. A clean shirt, stiff and strange but new. A letter from someone who misspelled your name but remembered to write. A quick wash in a stream when the water's warm and nobody's looking. Even your own body can surprise you. A day when your back doesn't hurt. A night when the cough stays gone. A morning when your hands don't shake. You look for these things. You collect them. You let them keep you going. One night, a storm rolls in fast, mean and loud. Lightning cracks like gunshots. The herd shudders. You and the others ride circles around them, shouting, singing, doing anything to keep them calm. When it passes, you're soaked and shaking. You lie on the ground, too tired to move. The earth's cold and wet, but you're alive. Someone says hell of a thing, and you all laugh because what else can you do? You fall asleep to wet leather and burned beans and the faintest hint of sage. That's life out here. Not a legend, not a poem. Just small comforts strung together on a rope of exhaustion and grit. And yet, you stay. Not just because you have to, but because you've learned to find beauty in broken places. Peace in the pauses between disasters. Meaning in the mundane. One day you'll be too old for this. Your knees will give. Your hands will shake. You'll lie on some cot and think of all the things you meant to do. But you'll remember this. The stars, the terrible coffee, the way your horse leaned into you when you fell asleep standing up. You'll remember, and it'll matter. Maybe someday they'll write books about cowboys. Not with your name, not with the truth, but close enough. They'll dress it up, of course. The lone rider cleaning up towns and riding into sunsets. But the real story? It's quieter, harder, lonelier. And it matters, even if nobody remembers. The herd's gone now, driven north, handed over, loaded into boxcars like sacks of grain. Months of your life traded for sun-scorched plains and nights so cold your bones ached. Now there's someone else's problem. Meat on the hoof bound for tables you'll never sit at. All that's left is the smell in your clothes and phantom cattle lowing in your mind. You dismount in a town that stinks of fresh lumber and horse piss. Buildings sharp-cornered and new. Faces tired and old. Nobody greets you. Nobody cares. You tie your horse and stretch. Your back pops in 3 places. You wonder when you started moving like a man twice your age. First stops the saloon. Not for the whiskey, though that comes later, but because it's the closest thing to familiar. Inside, it's half empty. A card game in back. 2 men arguing over debts. A girl at the piano playing something that sounds like regret set to music. You order coffee. Could have asked for whiskey, but you know how that ends. Sir Knuckles, empty pockets, waking in an alley. It's quieter than you remember. No trail hands laughing too loud. No barkeep swapping jokes. Just the shuffle of a broom and the clink of glass. You drink your coffee and let the warmth settle in your chest. It's terrible coffee, but it's hot and bitter, the 2 things it needs to be. You catch your reflection in the bar mirror and barely recognize the man staring back. Your shirt's bleached by sun and sweat. Your beard's gone gray at the edges. You're thinner than you realized, like the trail stripped away everything non-essential. Maybe it did. Even your hat sits different, more slumped. like it's given up on standing tall. Later, you get a room. The woman at the desk doesn't ask your name, just how many nights, and whether you're paying in coin or promises. You choose coin. Got enough for a few days, longer if you skip meals. Though your trail appetite's still there, so that might be the plan. Your room's up narrow stairs. The bed's too soft. Your body's forgotten how to sleep without rocks under your back. The pillow smells like soap instead of horse. It's unsettling. You lie there listening. Towns breathe different than the trail. No coyotes. No wind in the mesquite. No restless cattle. Just creaking boards and muffled voices below. Civilization, they call it. Doesn't feel like it. Morning comes early anyway. Habit. No triangle from cookie, but your eyes snap open just the same. You dress slow. Your hands don't move like they used to. Your left knee clicks. You go out and wander. The streets are still sleepy. A boy sweeps dust off the walkway, like the town's trying to pretend it's not built on dirt. You stop by the blacksmith. He's hammering a shoe. The sound's clean and sharp. He doesn't look up. You're just another ghost passing through. That suits you fine. You nod. He doesn't nod back. Respect's harder to come by without a herd at your back. In the days that follow, town life starts pressing on you. You try to make yourself small, a seat at the bar's end, quiet nods at the mercantile, but you feel like a spur in a silk pocket, out of place and sharp-edged. Town folk don't trust men with calloused hands and distant stares. Can't tell if you're dangerous or just damaged. You wonder if you know the difference anymore. You consider work. The livery needs help mucking stalls. The freight office wants guards for coach runs. A ranch outside town needs hands. None pay well. None call to you. You were built for open space, not fences and storefronts. Some men plant roots. Others drift. You stop pretending you're the former long ago. You kill time the way cowboys do, sitting, whittling, playing a hand of cards, losing more than you win, nursing bad coffee and worse still. You watch men lie to each other and wonder if that's what folks do when there's no horizon to chase. Sometimes you ride out just a few miles, not far, just enough to feel dirt under your horse again. You listen to saddle leather creak and brush rustle. It's not a trail drive, just a memory acted out. The horse knows. Her ears twitch forward like she's listening for cattle that aren't there. You meet another cowboy one morning, fresh off some other drive. Windburned face, squint lines, the look. You nod. He nods. Nothing else needs saying. You both know the same truths about cold beans and hot tempers, stampedes in the dark, the ache behind your knees after long days riding. It's a brotherhood without handshakes or rules, just dust and understanding. At night, you think about writing letters. To who? Your brother back east, if he's still alive? The girl who used to wait? But what would you say? I herded cows. The beans were cold. The days were long. Nobody said thanks. Doesn't seem worth the stamp. The money goes faster than expected. It always does. That new shirt's fraying already. That bath's a memory. Now you stretch what's left. Beans from a tin, jerky, bread gone stiff. You don't ask where it came from. You'd almost prefer trail food. At least that had purpose. You pawn spare boots. Skip meals. Tighten your belt another notch and call it thrift. But truth is, towns don't feed the forgotten. One evening near dusk, you find yourself by the rail line watching trains. Don't know where they're going. Doesn't matter. Part of you wonders what it'd be like to climb aboard and vanish into some other life. But you don't. Just stand there like a man remembering a ship he missed. When you finally move on, because you always do, nobody stops you. The saloon girl doesn't wave. The stable boy just takes his coin. The general store doesn't offer credit. You leave like you came, nothing promised, nothing owed. You ride out before sunrise. The town's still sleeping. The sky's gray with dawn. As your horse picks up pace, you don't look back. Cowboys don't say goodbye. They just melt into the morning. Because in the end, that's what you were made for. Not a name, not a place, just the ride. The morning after leaving that town starts like most others, with your bones protesting and your stomach growling louder than a grizzly. You're 3 miles out when Lefty suddenly stiffens beneath you, ears pricked forward like twin sentinels. Then you smell it too, with smoke and something meatier curling through the mesquite. Another camp. Could be friendly. Could be trouble. Your hand drifts toward your belt before you catch yourself. Old habits. Turns out it's just two sheep herders boiling coffee over a sorry excuse for a fire. They nod at you like they've been expecting company. One's missing an eye, the other's got fingers twisted like tree roots. They don't ask your business. Don't offer theirs. Just pass you a tin cup so blackened it's more stained than metal. The coffee's worse than cookies, if that's possible, but it's hot and it's free. You drink it staring at their flock, those stupid woolly faces chewing slow as judges. Makes you grateful for cattle, spiteful as they can be. You're riding light for a cowboy, One Eye remarks, eyeballing your near-empty saddlebags. Between drives, you mutter, not adding that the next drive might not come. The sheep smell worse up close, like wet wool and bad decisions. The herders don't talk much after that. Just hum some tune that might be a hymn or a drinking song. When you mount up to leave, Rude Hand tosses you a cloth bundle, jerky harder than saddle leather, but salted right. You tip your hat. They don't wave. By noon the heat's punishing. Lefty's lathered up good, his ribs heaving like bellows. You spot a windmill in the distance, its blades turning lazy as a Sunday preacher. The tank beneath is green with algae, but the water's cool when you cup it to your mouth. You let Lefty drink first, then refill your canteen, watching the ripples distort your reflection. Could be any cowboy staring back, sunburned nose, cracked lips, eyes squinted half shut against the glare. You splash your face and the image shatters. That night you camp in a dry wash where the earth still holds the day's heat. Dinner's the jerky and the last crumbling biscuit from God knows when. The stars come out bold as brass, so bright they almost hurt to look at. You're half asleep when the coyotes start up. Not the lone howls of the plains, but a whole chorus yipping and laughing like they're sharing one hell of a joke. Probably at your expense. You pull your hat lower and let them laugh. Dawn finds you rubbing sleep from your eyes with a fistful of sand. Lefty's gone. Not wandered off gone. His picket lines cut clean through. You follow the tracks easy enough. He wasn't stolen so much as borrowed by someone too lazy to catch their own. 2 miles east, you find him hitched outside a dugout so low to the ground you'd miss it if not for the blue smoke wisping from the chimney hole. The thief's a kid, couldn't be more than 14, with a face like a half-baked biscuit and trousers held up with baling wire. He's got Lefty brushed down and fed better than you have in weeks. Figured you'd come, he says by way of greeting, like you're late for supper. His name's Jim or Tim or something that rhymes. Doesn't matter. He makes coffee that doesn't taste like tar and serves up eggs fried in bacon grease with tortillas that might be yesterday's, but don't complain. Turns out he's holding this claim for his uncle who's off somewhere. Mining, maybe, or in jail. The kid talks a streak, words tumbling out like coins from a torn pocket. Says he's got 3 more horses out back if you're looking to buy. Says a lot of things. You eat slow, listening with half an ear while scanning the shack. The rusted traps hanging from nails, the patched boots by the door, the Winchester leaning in the corner with its barrel warped like a drunkard's smile. This kid's alone in every way that counts. When you finish eating, he looks at you expectant, like you're supposed to impart some wisdom. All you've got is trail dust and bad memories. You toss your last silver dollar on the table, overpayment for the eggs, but the kid's eyes go wide as saucers anyway. Keep the brush, you tell him as you tighten Lefty's cinch. He follows you to the property line, that too big hat of his slipping over his eyes. Mister, he calls after you. Which way's best? You almost laugh. Point north because it's as good as any direction. The land flattens out into nothing special. Just scrub and the occasional yucca standing sentinel. You're dozing in the saddle when Lefty shies at a rattler coiled neat as a watch spring in the trail. The snake buzzes its disapproval but doesn't strike. You tip your hat to it as you detour wide. No sense killing what's just being what it is. By late afternoon, you spot the dust plume before you see the herd. A good 2,000 head being pushed hard by a dozen riders. You rein up on a rise to watch them pass, the drag riders kicking up enough dirt to choke a locomotive. One peels off and canters toward you, some foreman checking for rustlers. You sit easy, hands in plain sight. Looking for work? He asks after looking you over. He's got a voice like gravel in a tin can. You consider it. The herd's bound for Kansas if the brands are any indication. 3 months of beans and balling. 3 months of wages. You could fall in with these boys easy as breathing. Just passing through, you say instead. He nods like he expected nothing else and wheels his horse back toward the dust cloud. You watch them fade into the shimmering distance, the sound of hooves fading until there's just the wind and Lefty's steady breathing. That night you build the smallest of fires, just enough to boil coffee in the dented pot you've carried since who knows when. The stars seem closer out here without other humans to push them away. You think about those sheep herders, that thieving kid, the trail boss who didn't press. Think about how some bonds form quick as brush fires and burn out just as fast. Your coffee's gone cold before you notice. Somewhere out in the dark, an owl asks its endless question. Lefty stamps his foot in answer. You bank the fire and roll into your blanket, using your saddle for a pillow the way you have 100 nights before and likely will 100 more. Tomorrow will bring another sunrise, another stretch of trail, another choice to make or let make itself. Same as always, same as ever. You close your eyes and let the coyotes sing you to sleep. 3 days out from that chance encounter with the herd, the land starts speaking in a language you'd almost forgotten. The prickly pear fat with purple fruit, the way the mesquite thickens along dry creek beds. You're getting close to something, though whether it's home or just country that feels like it, you can't say. Lefty knows though. His ears twitch at jackrabbits you don't even see yet, his stride quickening like he's got appointments to keep. The first sign you're not alone comes at dusk. Not the usual coyote chorus, but the sharp crack of an axe biting wood. Then smoke, thin and purposeful, rising from a draw ahead. You approach slow, letting Lefty's hooves announce you. The cabin's newer than most, its logs still weeping sap between the chinking. A woman steps out before you can dismount, wiping floury hands on an apron that's seen better days. Her eyes are the color of rifle barrels in shadow. You lost? She asks, though her tone says she already knows the answer. There's a revolver tucked casual in her apron pocket, the handle worn smooth as creek stone. Behind her, 2 kids peer around the doorframe, a boy near grown, a girl still clutching cornhusk dolls. Their faces tell the story before she does. Husband gone to war or whiskey or worse, leaving her to hold this patch of dirt against the world. Just thirsty, you say, tipping your hat. The boy brings you water in a tin cup without being asked, his shoulders already wide enough to carry burdens. It's sweeter than any you've tasted in months, flavored with the cedar bucket it's drawn from. The woman watches you drink like she's calculating how much you're worth, not in coin, but in trouble. She invites you to supper like it's a challenge. The stew's mostly turnips, but there's rabbit in it too, and dumplings that melt on your tongue. You eat at a proper table for the first time since spring, the kerosene lamp painting everyone golden. The girl whispers to her doll, while the boy stares at your Colt like it's the key to some secret manhood. The woman says little, but her silence speaks volumes. The way she serves you first, the careful distance she keeps from your left side where your gun hangs. Come morning, you find the boy already currying Lefty when you step outside. He's using long, sure strokes the way you might have at his age, all elbows and earnestness. Think he could jump a fence? The kid asks, eyeing Lefty's knobby knees. You snort into your coffee. Son, this old sinner couldn't jump a puddle. But you show him how to check for saddle sores anyway, how to pack a hoof with pine tar. The knowledge passes between you like a shared secret. The woman pays you in eggs hard-boiled in salt water and a slab of cornbread wrapped in waxed paper. For the road, she says, like it's nothing special. But you know what flour costs this far from town. You leave them a silver dollar hidden under your plate, where she'll find it later, where her pride won't be bruised finding it too soon. The land opens up after that, the cedars giving way to grama grass that whispers against Lefty's belly. You're dozing in the saddle when a sound snaps you alert, not the metallic rasp of a rattler, but the liquid gurgle of actual running water. The creek's barely knee-deep, but it's clear enough to see the pebbles dancing along the bottom. You and Lefty drink your fill, then drink again just because you can. That's where you find the bones. They're sun-bleached and scattered, but the skull tells the tale. Longhorn, probably 3 years old by the teeth. No bullet hole, no broken legs. Just dead the way things sometimes die out here, for reasons only the coyotes understand. You pocket a molar the size of a shotgun shell. Could make a decent button someday. The creek leads you to a lined shack sometime around midday, its roof half caved in from last winter's snows. Inside smells of mouse piss and old tobacco, but the dirt floor's dry. You find the usual artifacts: a busted harmonica, a whiskey bottle with a candle stub melted into its throat, initials carved into the doorframe, so old the wood's grown around them. In the corner, someone's left a tin of peaches with the key still attached, rusted solid. You leave it be. Some gifts aren't meant to be claimed. That night you camp in the shack's lee, the walls groaning like an old man turning in his sleep. The cornbread's gone stale, but the eggs are good, their yolks bright as noon sun. You watch the stars well overhead and think about that woman's kitchen, how the lamplight caught the girl's hair just so. The memory sits strange in your chest, equal parts sweet and aching. Lefty nickers softly in the dark. You toss him the last crust without thinking, then lie back listening to him chew. Somewhere out past the creek, a bullbat's wings make that peculiar whirring sound as it dives for insects. The fire pops once, twice, then settles into glowing embers. You pull your hat over your eyes and let the night have its way. Morning comes on cat feet, gray and damp with dew. You saddle up slow, taking time to check Lefty's girth twice. No reason to rush. The day'll be hot soon enough, the grasshoppers rising in crackling clouds ahead of your passage. But for now, there's just the mist rising off the creek, the distant call of a quail, and the road unwinding before you like a promise you're not sure you'll keep.